Hello, and welcome to Marathon Swim Stories, where we connect with marathon swimmers around the world to find out how they got started, what makes them tick, and why they keep going. It's where we explore the human side of the superhuman feats of endurance swimmers, the connections that we have with each other, our support crew, and the waters we cross. If you've ever stood at the edge of a body of water and wondered what it would be like to swim to the other side, you're in good company. I'm Shannon Keegan, marathon swimmer, water relationship coach, and founder of Intrepid Water, where I virtually teach swimming freedom. Freedom to get started, shed the confines of the pool, or your preconceived notions of what's possible. Find out more at intrepidwater.com. I know I'm privileged, but talking to Kim Miller about her work to end human trafficking really puts my privilege in perspective. Thank goodness there are people like Kim and organizations like Blue Dragon who are working to end human trafficking in Vietnam. What does human trafficking have to do with marathon swimming? Just wait till you hear Kim's remarkable story. She hadn't thought much about swimming since quitting as a teen. However, a 2-week quarantine in 2021 left her longing to be immersed in water. It wasn't long before her wish came true when she happened upon some warm and welcoming ocean swimmers. I'll let Kim tell the rest. To think that we can do what we love and make a difference in other people's lives, now that's a good story. Enjoy. All right, I'm here today with Kim, who reached out to me from the blue, which is the best way to hear about people. I love it. I just love that there's people out there in the world listening to Marathon Swim Stories, and I think you're one of them. So tell me, Kim, tell me your story.
Absolutely. I've been listening to you for about 2.5 years now, so it's a little bit surreal to be here and actually be talking to you. It's very exciting. And I have to say, I've listened to so many incredible people on your podcasts that it does feel a little bit there's a lot of imposter syndrome happening right now because I'm really at the very beginning, I feel, of my marathon swimming adventures. So but it's exciting to be here to be talking to you. So thank you so much. It's really cool.
So 2.5 years. So where were you 2.5 years ago when you started listening? Why did you start listening? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I work for an organization called Blue Dragon Children's Foundation in Vietnam. And I'd been living and working in Vietnam and definitely not swimming. And through COVID, I wasn't able to get back to Australia. But my mum and dad had 9 operations between them in the 11 months that I couldn't get back to Australia.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'd always promised them I'm only ever a plane ride away. I can be home in 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so then when I was finally able to get a flight home, in Australia, we had 2 weeks hotel quarantine when we got back to the country. And I just spent that 2 weeks dreaming, like locked in a hotel room, a very nice hotel room, but air conditioning, no windows. I couldn't really see outside, definitely couldn't get any fresh air. And all I could think about was the blue open sky of Australia and the blue ocean and just wanting to be immersed in water. And so, mum and dad lived down on the south coast, and I went down there to see them and to be with them when I got back. And I'd go for a walk along the beach in the morning before they'd wake up, and I'd see this group of ocean swimmers, and they were all different ages and sizes, and this group of really diverse people. It was like my dream. It was a group of people laughing and smiling and talking first thing in the morning, walking down to the edge of the water together and having a swim. I finally built up the courage to talk to them and to say, what do I need to be able to do to swim with you? Because I'd swum as a teenager until I was like 13, and then I quit and swore I'd never go back again, and hadn't swum in 33 years. And so I was sort of saying to them, do I need to do a course? Who do I talk to? Do I need to swim a certain distance? And they were so warm and welcoming, as I found that ocean swimmers are. And they just said, just come. I was like, no, but there's no way I could swim even a kilometer right now. And they're like, that's okay, just come. And I think I had this vision that ocean swimming you had to swim out to sea.
Right.
And I was like, but what if I get tired and I can't swim? And they're like, well, then you get out. So you swim in and get out. I was like, but, and then I realized, oh no, we swim along the beach. So, yeah, so I joined them. I was very scared. I wore flippers because I was very scared of sharks and fish and seaweed. I have friends who can't believe that I swim in the ocean now. And gradually I realized that all of that training I'd done as a child had sort of somehow was still instilled in me. And I just, I loved it. It was and is still my mental health, my physical health, my social. And yeah, I just started swimming further and further and loving it more and more. And it's, yeah, I think because I was so nervous to begin with, I really immersed myself in everything I could. I read everything I could. I listened to all the podcasts. I was watching videos of people swimming with sharks. And I was just kind of really trying to immerse myself in the world to reassure myself, I think, that other people do this and love this too. And it's okay to be a little bit afraid, but do it anyway.
Yeah.
So that's how I started listening to you. That's how I found you.
Wow. I just love that story. It gives me goosebumps literally thinking about that because I think we were saying before before I started the recording, I just in my heart of hearts, I just want more people to be swimmers because I just think it's so good for us, right? And it could be so good for everybody. And there's so many barriers that can be. And so I commend you for just walking up to those people and just saying, "Hey, what would it be like? How could I do this?" But it's interesting to me you had to have that experience of that 2 week quarantine and not being able to see the ocean or the sky. Not that anybody should have to go through that at all, but that I imagine there was some appreciation just from not having like that. I don't know. I don't know. How can we flip the switch for more people to bring them to the water and have the courage to walk up to groups of strangers and ask them? Because we are kind of nice people once you get to know us, but it can be really intimidating.
Yes, one of the things that I've found is how wonderful and welcoming ocean swimmers are. It's like, I mean, I guess I generally think people are good, but ocean swimmers seem to be totally different in terms, I don't know if it's the being out in the wild and being in nature, or if it's got to do with the fact that what we're doing is a little bit dangerous. Yeah, it is a little bit scary, and we really do need each other and support each other. And I think people are forced to kind of be vulnerable in a way. You know, we're almost naked. we're swimming in the wild. I think you're forced to be more vulnerable than we would in everyday life.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you made the trek to join the club of ocean swimmers, and I can't even imagine swimming in Australia someday I'm going to make it there.
Please.
So tell us where you've been in the last 2.5 years then, since taking up a little bit of ocean swimming.
When I moved back up to Sydney, I joined a couple of different ocean swimming groups. I was swimming with like a different group each day of the week, which was really lovely. But I ended up doing like different distances with each of them. And I swam with a group who, for the first time, who the very next day it was a public holiday in Australia the next day. And they were going to swim from Maroubra Beach to Coogee Beach, which is about 4 kilometres, with no beaches in the middle. It's around headlands. And they said, "Oh, come with us." And I as a child would swim, 4.5K sets in the pool. And the idea of being able to swim 4 kilometres again was really appealing. And I'd been kind of building up to it. I thought it might take me 12 months to get there. And this was maybe 3 months. This is April, actually, 2021. And I did it. And that feeling of euphoria as I realized I'd swum 4 kilometers and I'd achieved this goal that I didn't really even know was a goal, so much earlier than I expected. I just ended up swimming longer distances and in doing that, meeting different people. And I was introduced to a coach in Australia, in Sydney, called Vlad, who's a really well-known ocean marathon swimming coach. And he encouraged me to join a 10-kilometer swim in December that year. So each month we just set a goal. I swim with a couple of friends, and each month we swam on a Saturday 1 kilometer further until 9 kilometers, so that by December that 10K was my first 10-kilometer swim. And there was I distinctly remember a moment where I was lying on my back just thinking, how on earth am I going to finish this? I was exhausted. I talked to everybody about it. I remember it being the biggest deal, asking about not knowing about feeds, and people were talking about my medication, and it was all consuming. And when I finished that 10-kilometre swim, I then qualified to do longer swims here in Australia. And so Vlad again encouraged me to do, there's a 20-kilometre swim around Great Keppel Island in Queensland. And he said it's an easy 20-kilometre swim. It's it's a beautiful swim. It's got, reefs and turtles and really beautiful. Current assisted along one side of the island. And then there's a section that's no current at all, and then current assisted as the tide changes around the back end. So an easy 20-kilometre swim. And I knew at the time I was feeling a deep hole for my work at Blue Dragon in Vietnam. We rescue victims of human trafficking. We work with street kids. We do work to stop human trafficking from happening, prevent it from happening in the first place, and to help survivors build back their lives. And I'm still working for them, but it's remote. And so there was definitely this feeling of I wanted to do more. And so I decided that that easy 20-kilometre swim would be for Blue Dragon. And so I raised $20,000 in that swim, which at the time rescued about 6 victims of human trafficking. And it's different now, but that was kind of there was another moment. We didn't get the beautiful swim that is the Great Keppel Island swim.
Oh, no.
It was a once in 100-year weather event. Get to swim around the island. We went one direction up the island in water that was the coldest it had ever been up there. It was meant to be a warm water swim. And there was no visibility because the wind and the chop and everything had stirred everything up. Yeah, and there was a moment where we had to swim. We swam basically back to the start, but we had to turn around and swim another 7 kilometres, 3.5 each way, away from the starting point against the current for that first 3.5. And it was the furthest I'd swum. And it was, it was quite tough at that moment. And I just spent that 3.5 kilometres thinking about our survivors and what they'd been through, and what an absolute privilege it was for me to be able to put myself into this challenge, that this was something I'd chosen to do that was going to better my life, that was helping other people. And then I started thinking about all the different people who donated and spent time thinking about each of them and why I loved them and why I was grateful for them and what they'd done. And that 3.5 kilometres just flew by. It's when I look back, it's my favourite part of the swim. And then, of course, it was just the 3.5 home, so that was fine.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was kind of up until July 2022. And at that stage, I was swimming with just some of the most inspiring people that I know, doing incredible things. And I was just surrounded by them. I was training in cold water through winter with 7 people who were swimming the English Channel that year.
Wow.
Yeah, and it just became so normalized. It was really just, I didn't really understand that this was 3 years worth of English Channel swimmers because of COVID. And so there'd been people who couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it just became my normal that this is, people do this. It's what people do. And people kept saying to me, when are you swimming the English Channel? And I'd laugh and I'd say, never. It wasn't something I'd even dreamt of or considered in my life. But people kept asking. And eventually somebody asked me who had the capacity to change my life. And it was just after the Keppel Island swim. And I was meeting with one of our Blue Dragon donors, a friend and supporter. And he is from the UK. And he said to me, when are you swimming the English Channel? And I laughed and I said, never. Whenever I work for Blue Dragon, it won't happen. It would, cost me more than my annual wage to swim the English Channel from Australia. And we hatched a plan where he would sponsor me and support me to get to Dover. And I would raise $200,000 for Blue Dragon to help us put our anti-trafficking programs in 10 new communities to keep thousands of new people safe from human trafficking. And, how could I say no to that, to be able to combine this newfound passion for ocean swimming with this vocation, this thing that I'm doing that I can't imagine not being a part of, and to be able to support Blue Dragon at the same time. It was a no-brainer. So, now I'm training for the English Channel.
Wow. Oh, my gosh. I got goosebumps just thinking about that. My goodness. $200,000. That's a lot of money to raise. That's a long way to swim. How are you going to do all this?
Yeah, the swimming part I think is the easy. Well, it's starting to feel like the easy part. It's starting to, I swam Palm to Shelley, which is 26 kilometres and the first of my Australian Triple Crown swims last year. And I finished that very happy to be finished, but also knowing I could go further. It was a huge confidence boost. And since then, I've done a few other. I swam 51 kilometres in 48 hours for an initiative called Pledge for the Planet that we have here in Sydney, where we get points for every kilometre that we swim. And it's awareness raising for climate change, making pledges to do things that are great for the planet. So yes, I swam 51 kilometres in 48 hours, which again is like, it's definitely channel distance, but in a shorter amount of time. So, a much longer period of time.
Yeah.
In 5 swims. Yeah.
Right.
So that's been really confidence building. And I'm swimming Port de Pub in March this year, just in a little while. So I'm feeling like each stepping stone just builds my confidence that when I get to the channel, I will have done everything I can to get there. For the fundraising, there's been some really fun ways that we're raising money. We had Australia Day here in Australia just not so long ago. And I don't know if you've heard of a lamington.
I don't think so.
It's like a sponge cake. It's a very Australian cake.
Okay.
It's an individually sized cake. It's made of sponge. It's covered in chocolate, kind of melty, soft chocolate. And then you roll it in coconut.
Okay.
Some people have a layer of jam in the middle or cream in the middle. These ones had jam in the middle. And we had a Lamington Day fundraiser at one of my local swimming groups, the Coobras we're called, down at Maroubra. And I ended up raising $940 from 36 Lamingtons. Like, the community that I'm swimming with are just absolutely beautiful. And people ended up donating Lamingtons back so that other people could buy them so we could raise more money. And yeah, so I'm doing things like that, fundraising events. I'm also reaching out right now for corporate sponsorships. So I know that there's opportunities here for companies around the world to make an enormous change and, to be able to do their part, to be able to make sure that people around the world are safe from modern slavery. And there are companies who are really invested in that and who want to be involved and to want to do that. So yeah, I'm really excited to give people the opportunity to sponsor the swim, to learn about Blue Dragon, and to be able to come on this adventure with me.
How common do you think shoulder injury is in masters and college swimmers? It's a jaw-dropping statistic that you'll learn in the new Minimizing Risk of Shoulder Injury in Freestyle Swimmers course from Swim Mastery. This 60-minute online course is packed with useful information about why shoulder injury is so common in swimming, as well as practical tips to put into practice right away. Go to swimmastery.online and navigate to the shop in the resources menu, or email me, shannon@intrepidwater.com, and I'll send you a direct link so that you can start swimming pain-free today. Tell me how we can. I'll be sure and put links and stuff in the show notes to make sure that if we want to support you, that we can. But just give me a little high level. I guess I'm curious. Well, I want to get to that. I definitely want to get to the how we can help you. But I'm curious how you got involved in the first place with Blue Dragon.
I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher and a social worker. And when I was, in my very first year of teaching, I'm trying to give you the short version here. I know I tell long stories. I met the founder of Blue Dragon. He was a teacher, and he went across to Vietnam, not to start a charity, but to teach English. But he started meeting street kids and children in need. And when he was ready to leave Hanoi, he was looking for a charity or an organization or somebody to support these children that he'd met, that he was helping. And at the time, there wasn't anybody. We're talking 20 years ago. This year, it's actually our 20th anniversary year this year. And so he decided to stay and to start Blue Dragon. In 2012, Michael, the founder of Blue Dragon, he came to speak at the school that I was working at with a young man called V. V was one of the very first street kids that Michael met, one of the very first boys who'd left his hometown, moved to the city to hope to earn enough money to be able to provide food and education for his family. He was 14. And V came to speak, and at that stage, he was actually working for Blue Dragon. He was he was an outreach worker. So basically, his job was to be out on the street meeting new street kids. We knew at that stage we had about 48 hours to meet kids on the street. If we hadn't met them within 48 hours, something worse than being homeless would have happened to them, whether they were approached or abused by gangs, pedophiles. There were all sorts of dangers of living on the streets. And so he told his story. And I knew at that time that it was something I needed to be more involved in. And I went across in 2012 and spent some time with them. And then in 2014, I moved across to Vietnam to work for them full time. So that street kid, last year he became my boss. He's now the co-CEO of Blue Dragon. And so seeing stories like that happen all the time, it helps you realize that people are just born into different circumstances. It's not through anything they've done or any fault of their own, but if they just haven't had the same opportunities and luck that I've had in my life, but with love and care and support, when they're given the opportunity to go to school and have an education, they can do anything, absolutely anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then over the years, the work at Blue Dragon has changed. Our work with street kids at the moment really now is we no longer have that 48-hour window of hope. If we haven't met them when they get off the bus, they're at huge risk of human trafficking, of being tricked and taken and forced to work against their will. We have done a lot of rescues of girls from brothels and forced marriages. We are working at the moment. The situation is extremely complex. Thousands of people have been trafficked from Vietnam into Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and we're hearing even the Philippines, into forced scam compounds. So, all those text messages and emails we get from people scamming us?
Mm-hmm.
Often they're people who are slaves. They've been tricked. They think they're going for a great job somewhere. They're being locked into compounds where they're abused, tortured. If they're not meeting their targets, if they're not able to do the work well, or if they're refusing to do the scams. We know of people who have had their organs harvested as punishment for not meeting targets, which is something we would have said a few years ago just wasn't possible. And so, that work is really, we know that, doing those rescues is important. And, if I can say so myself, we're really good at doing that. But we also have to end it. Like, this can't go on. And so we started a few years ago thinking about, well, then how do we end human trafficking in Vietnam? And so we are starting anti-trafficking boards in communities in Vietnam. And it's made up of local people, local experts local people who become experts. They run workshops for people in their community, helping people understand the tricks and the trades of the traffickers, how people get tricked, how they get manipulated, and how to keep themselves safe. In those same communities, we're paying for education for kids to go to school, helping families to have a sustainable income. And it's also an opportunity to survey the community to know who is vulnerable and then to be able to help the people who are actually vulnerable. So, just the most incredible work. And I'm so incredibly grateful to be part of it and to be able to be making this hugely positive change in the world. Yeah.
Wow. Like I said before I started the recording, that human trafficking is one of the big blind spot for me, something I'd prefer to believe didn't exist. And so I'm really glad that there's people out there, I guess, trying to stop it, because it's really, I love hearing about trying to get to the source, get in the communities, because it's, I feel like there's so many problems in the world, and there's so many, we do Band-Aids, right? But it's like, we got to get to the root of it. So it's good to hear that.
We talk about it as, ironically, for an open water swimming podcast, we talk about it as we work upstream and downstream. It's like you can't just be in the middle there doing the rescues if you're not stopping people from being trafficked in the first place, and if we're not helping to care for them when they come home, when we're able to help them to come home, then we're not doing everything we can to be able to help people regain their lives. And it has to be the full stream.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see how with heavy work like that, that needing the mental health to go to the water. Tell us more about, some more stories from the water.
Yeah, it is. It's like another world, isn't it? It's so exciting. We've had encounters with a whale, 1 or 200 meters away, just breaching in front of us and then landing again. And yeah, I've swum with dolphins. I have three really special moments of swimming with dolphins, which blows my mind. Like, I would pay for an experience like that. And just being out in the water with my friends and having them circling us and swimming around us is just the most incredible feeling. We have where I love to swim is a place called Coogee Beach here in Australia, and there's an island that's about a 2.4 kilometre swim to get out to the island around it and back again. And we have a couple of turtles that live out there. And I used to think they were mythical because people would talk about seeing these turtles, and I'd be like, oh, I've never seen them. But when you see these two turtles, it's super exciting. One of them we call Gerald. Gerald and Geraldine. So yeah, it's super exciting to be able to get out there and to see them, and just to be with a group of people who are so like-minded and inspiring. I think the ocean swimming community really we help each other believe that we can do anything. And it's such an exciting place to be.
Right? Yeah. And then that feeling can go into your work too, which is the beautiful thing about it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how are you going to prepare for the cold of the English Channel?
Yeah. So I've been lucky in that it doesn't seem to bother me too much, not as much as some other people who I've swum with in the past. So we have an event in Sydney called Cold Camp, which is the English Channel qualifying event. And it goes for 4 days. And there's a number of different swims. There's the 8-hour qualifying swim, but there's also some night swims and some other morning swims. So you're in and out of the cold over a number of different swims. And I do get the after drop. But when I'm in the water at this stage, it's been okay. So to make sure that I'm okay, I haven't had a hot shower since the end of October.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's summer in Australia at the moment, so that's not too difficult. The challenge will come when winter comes, I know. But yeah, I'm only having cold showers at the moment. And I've brought one of those it's a little inflatable ice bath that I sit in. I've been talking to my coach, and we think that if I can sit in that for an hour at a time at about 14 degrees, so it doesn't need to be too cold, just sort of English Channel temperature. And if I can sit in that for an hour 3 times a week of an evening, we think that should be pretty good. At the moment, though, it's taking like 3 bags of ice to get the water down to that temperature. So I'm kind of excited for winter to come so that it's not so expensive. It's a much cheaper excursion to be able to create an ice bath on my balcony.
Yeah. Yep. So what's your date, your window?
Yeah, my window opens on July 26 and closes on August 1. It's such a surreal feeling to be able to say, yeah, I'm swimming the English Channel this year. It's been, it feels like it's been a long time coming in some ways, but to know it's this year, I know the next couple of months they're going to fly.
Yeah. Yeah. And how can we support you?
Oh, thank you. Look, yeah. So I have a fundraising page. I'll send you the link. It's if you Google Kim's Big Blue English Channel Swim, it comes up. But I know that's a mouthful, and I've had advice to shorten the link. I'm so connected to the name. So there's a fundraising page where people can donate. If you know somebody who owns a company, or if any of the listeners know somebody who owns a company who you think might be interested on jumping on board and being able to help protect a community from human trafficking, let me know. We can talk about sponsorship and how I can help you, how I can help your business to really understand the human face of why it's so important, and to be able to support you to be able to do training and remediation for if there is human trafficking or modern slavery in your supply chain. So I think it's a really reciprocal arrangement here in being able to people get on board to help protect people from human trafficking, but also be able to build up education and understanding in their businesses as well. So yeah, and individuals, I have all the Facebook, and it's kind of surreal, but I have an athlete Facebook and Instagram page, and I'm keeping a blog just to help raise the awareness about the dragon and human trafficking. So I'm having to really put myself out there a lot more than I would generally be comfortable with. But, it's a privilege to be able to do it. So I'm here I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that I've heard stories from other marathon swimmers, imagine that, about when you're when you're fundraising. I really love the idea. I'm hoping to bring it into some of my future swims as well, some type of fundraising. But being able to, like you said, imagine the donors and the people you're helping, and like while you're swimming, it makes the miles pass really quickly, right?
It really does, yeah. And it is. It's such a lucky thing to be able to do. This ocean swimming, marathon swimming, we get to be with incredible people in an incredible place, to feel great about ourselves, because there's endorphins and, everything that comes along with doing ocean swimming. And then to be able to do that to help somebody else at the same time, it's amazing.
No brainer, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else that you wanted to share with us today?
No, look, just thank you. The stories that you share and the people that you talk to, it really does, I think, for new people coming into ocean swimming and helping people to build confidence and to believe in themselves. I think sometimes it takes other people believing in us or showing their own belief in themselves before we can start to believe that we're capable of something. And your podcast has absolutely done that for me. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who you've interviewed and spoken to in the past for their generosity and vulnerability and sharing their stories too. Because I think it makes a big difference.
I think so. Well, obviously, I decided to create a podcast about it. But yeah, I really, and it's as good a time as any to say, like, it was so important to me when I started Marathon Swim Stories that we didn't necessarily introduce people by accolades or whatever they'd done. Because I was able, during the pandemic, I was able to talk to some really amazing, like, high profile swimmers. Not that, but at the end of the day, I guess I think that we are all could be that person. And I want people's story to shine through by just who they are and, feel emboldened to take on whatever they want to take on. So thank you for bringing your story here. And it is vulnerable to share your story. So I'm so grateful for all the people who've shared their stories over the years. It's such a gift.
Thank you, Shannon.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you were inspired by even just a moment of this story, please share it with a friend. You never know what might push someone out of their comfort zone so that they can find out what they're capable of. And please leave a review with your podcast provider. It truly helps others discover the raw and honest stories of these amazing endurance swimmers. Thanks for listening.